Jaylen Brown signing the richest contract in NBA history. It's going to be 5 years, 304 million. The real question is this contract good for the Celtics' future right now? Do you think this is a good deal or a bad deal for the Celtics? I'm going to start with Q just because, one, I know you're a Jaylen Brown fan. So I'm going to start with you.
For the Celtics' future, it's not good based off the new CBA. Because the percentage of the cap space is just going to be horrible because they're going to offer Jason Tatum that $334 million contract next year, and he's going to sign it. So that's going to, keep him cap strapped for like the next 5 years. So they only really have this next year coming up to really win like a chip where everything is like just okay. They spending all this money. In terms of Jaylen Brown, I think too much is put on the fact that he signed this contract and they offered him this contract. But they gotta understand, with the CBA, like with the old CBA at that time, to be eligible for this contract, he had to make All NBA. He made All NBA. He was eligible for the contract. Why would he take less than the contract that he went out there? It's a contract year. He went out there and was striving for that so he could get that money. He wasn't gonna sign anything less. Yeah, he could have went to another team and signed a said Supermax contract, but it wouldn't have been as much because it's another team and they don't got his bird rights. But he was always going to get this contract. And since they weren't planning on trading Jaylen Brown, it was either give him this contract or let him walk next year. So what you think Boston was going to do, especially if they're trying to maximize everything right now while, he's on this deal. Jason Tatum's still here. You got Chris Stapps, you got Rob Will, you got Al, you got D. White. You got your core. You try and maximize it right now before things get really, really ugly. But they still believe that he could get better. Jaylen Brown is 26, 27. I'm not saying he can't get better. He can make minimal improvement and get better a lot. Like if he makes a small jump in playmaking, that makes him just that much better of a player. I'm not saying he will, but there's a possibility he can. He's 26.
Don't worry about it. He won't. He won't be doing that. He's been in the league for 7 years. If he's going to do that, he would have done it a long time ago.
He will, but contracts are usually based on what you can do now and what you will do in the future. So them giving this contract, they believe that in the next 5 years, they think they can win a chip with Jaylen Brown as one of the best players on the team. I'm not saying we got to agree with it, but just based on what we've seen, Jaylen Brown is still one of the better players in the league, even if he's just a 25 player.
Jaden, I want to ask you before you get into your spiel. What do you feel like? What do you feel about Jaylen Brown? Like this level of player getting that amount of money. What do you feel about the level of player of Jaylen Brown making $7 million in 2028, 2029?
See, at first I was against it, but I kind of understand. So as of late, we've kind of seen his issues with like ball handling. Like we know he can't handle the rock. I think it was really prevalent. Like it came really prevalent like last year, and of course we've seen it this year where he can't dribble with his left hand. But now with seeing that, like he's seeing different amounts of pressure. I think what was it like the finals where he outperformed Tatum, and then when Tatum went down this year, like he was the number one option. Like he's seen like all the attention that he can garner. So I feel like it's gonna be a staple in this offseason where he has to develop that left hand because defenders weren't playing him. They weren't giving him that number one attention. So, and then now, as Q said, he's 26 years old. Jason Tatum is 25 years old. All this is doing is just locking up the young core. Like right now, they should be heading into the prime of their careers. I still think Jaylen Brown can get better. All he has to do is become a better playmaker, a better ball handler. What'd you say, Q?
Let me jump in right after you, but go ahead.
So, and then I think this is a good move. They're just locking up the core. Jason Tatum is gonna get his money. Jaylen Brown got his money, and then you bring in Kristaps Porzingis. Like this team is gonna compete. Really, all you're asking for is with Jaylen Brown is literally just improve his ball handling, improve his playmaking abilities, and then this team can go far.
With him making $70 million in this last year, you gotta understand, other players are gonna jump that. Like a lot of players in that same time frame will jump that number. You know what I'm saying? So at that time when he's making 65 to 70 mil, other players are going to also be making 70 mil. And how many players do you think are going to be better than Jaylen Brown like 5 years from now? Like, will there be 50 players better than Jaylen Brown? Not really.
No, I don't think so.
Probably be like
And
30,
most teams that are trying to, they're going to have 2 players making around that type of money. There's always going to be like competing teams. They're always going to have like 2 type of players making that kind of money. If we believe Jason Tatum can make a jump like that, if Jason Tatum can make a minimal jump, because he's around 7, 6, 7, 8, 9. If he can make a minimal jump, he's in that 4, 5, 6 category. If he's 4, 5, 6, Jaylen Brown could be a top 25 player and they can win a chip. You know what I'm saying? So like, don't get caught up in the money right now, because
that's what I was about to say.
That are gonna be getting contracts real soon in the next 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, that's literally what I was about to say. Like, they're literally heading into their prime of their careers. Jason Tatum, I believe, you know how everybody says Anthony Davis is like a top 5 talent. Like, you could say that about Jason Tatum. So they're heading into their prime of their careers. I guess it does look a little bit bad right now, but I don't think that this is a bad move.
I think it's a bad move because you're gonna have 2 players making 70% of your cap. So Jaylen Brown gets 35, and then Tatum's about to get 35 of your cap. So you have a 2-year window. This contract starts in 2024, 2025. I think Tatum's contract will start in 2025, 2026. So you have those 2 years where you still have a little bit of flexibility to put a good team around these 2 young players. After that, if you don't win in these next 2 years, the team is going to be terrible. You're not going to have any money to really surround your talent with, because after that, you're going to have 30% of the cap. That's going to be like minimum. You're going to have me, you, Max, and Q on the bench. Like, you're going to be able to play nobody, bro. Like, that's what the team going to be like.
I don't know what you're talking about. I can get a bucket.
when the CBA was created, they made the Supermax deal to keep stars like Kevin Durant, to keep stars like KD in their hometowns in small market situations with teams that drafted him. They did not make these they did not make the CBA for Jaylen Brown to make $300 million. That is a mistake, because they should have never put those parameters into where all you have to do is make all NBA team. You're eligible for this money. I know it's hard to create parameters for who deserve a Supermax, yes, but you cannot deny that was the intention. It was to keep LeBron, keep KD, keep Jokic, keep Steph in their hometowns, where their money is going to be so much more with a Supermax than any other team, so they got to re-sign. So it's harder for them to leave the teams. They were not thinking Jaylen Brown was going to get this level of money. And now when you introduce the Supermax, like Austin Rivers said, it kills the middle. It kills the middle class. You got Desmond Bane making $50 million. You got Tyrese Halliburton, who he deserves it a little bit, yeah, making $50 million a year. You got Jaylen Brown being the highest paid player in the NBA, and then you got Christian Wood finna chew his ass up for a minimum, bro. Like, it's insane. So you really killed the middle class with this move. Free agency is, bro. I heard Jay Redick said this earlier. I was watching his podcast, and I agree with it. Free agency is going to be dead. It's not going to be these like superstars moving around a lot, because one, the Supermax is going to ensure that no other team can offer them that. And then you're gonna have all these teams. The only teams going to have cap space is trash teams like the Rockets, the Pistons. These teams with young players who have all the cap space like the Rockets are going to be signing people with crazy contracts and having them on 2-year deals with options, 3-year deals with options. Free agency is about to look different because of these new contracts, how the CBA works, how you got to spend 90% of your cap space before training camp. I think it's drastically changing the landscape of the NBA, and I think the entire CBA was a bad deal, along with this one.
Go ahead, man.
Go ahead, Max. You ain't really said nothing yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unfortunate for Boston because someone had to do it eventually. Someone had to spend the big money, and I do agree. Like, I don't like the move, but it's a move they had to make. For this year and for next year, I do think it guarantees them some sort of competitiveness. Granted, they stay healthy. They're competing for the next 2 years, regardless of what happens in Miami, regardless of what happens in Milwaukee. Like, they have stability. They don't have to rely on anyone else. They have a good enough team to compete with I'm not gonna say whatever happens, but majority of the stuff that's gonna happen in the East. So they like keep their championship window open for this. I think as we look forward down, what Latif you're saying, like 2-3 years down the line, Boston's had a great track record of drafting, right? Boston's picked. You can say they got high picks, right? You pick Tatum, you pick Brown, but they still picked right. They picked Jason Tatum, they picked Jaylen Brown, you pick Robert Williams, pick Marcus Smart. Jordan Walsh is looking pretty good. Peyton Pritchard didn't play much last year, but looked good. Grant Williams, like they've drafted pretty well in the past couple of years. So I do think Brad Stevens, especially at the helm, can develop talent. I think you could develop cheaply through that. But yeah, it's I don't think it's as much of a Boston Celtics issue. It is more of an NBA issue. Jaylen Brown's an amazing basketball player, right? Like you can say he's whatever, not the top 20, the team's the top 30. He's an amazing basketball player, but I don't think anyone would say he's the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, whatever guy in the league. I think like if Jaylen Brown's getting paid $69 million, I think in his 5th year, what's Luka gonna get? What's Giannis gonna get? Like, are we gonna like? It's only a matter of time before people start like offering ownership of teams. You know what I mean? Like, you start offering like not even money at this point in time, right? Like, the amount of money going around would be crazy. Obviously, just with the world, like more and more money's getting thrown around. We see that with soccer and other sports too. But it's like it is wild because I remember the Timofey Mozgov and the Will Dang summer, right? Like we're seeing this money getting thrown around for like bench players. And I guess just seeing an NBA contract go for $60 million, like I had to do a double take. When I saw the thing on Instagram, like I saw it was $300 million for 5 years. And I was just like shocked. I was like, there's no way he's making $60 million a year. Like he is comfortably, right, the highest paid player in the league, getting paid more than, I mean, every NFL player, majority of ML, like he's just, it's insane amount of money. So it's Boston. Wealth. That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, that money's insane. So I do agree. Like, it sucks for Boston, but you did have to make it. Why would you trade for Porzingis and then let Jaylen Brown walk or try and move him? So I do think with the core they have, they're going to be competitive. But I think I think if we look at this 2-3 years down the line, I think we'll be seeing other guys get this sort of money. So I don't think it'll be the craziest thing in the world to say Jaylen Brown's in it. But $69 million is still a ton of money. So I don't know. I think we're just looking at it in the future. Like if Luka gets 75 and Giannis gets 80 and Jokic gets 90, then we're looking at JB as like a steal. But at the end of the day, like this is the start of what's to come. Like this is the start of what's to come. So I don't know.
I do think it's one of the worst contracts in the NBA though, for sure.
I mean, I think it is.
Last for so long.
I think it is just like for the simple fact that it's like such a big portion of your team's like spending. You know what I mean? Like it could be an MVP caliber player, and still $60 million a year. I'm looking at if you're giving Luka $60 million a year, like that's great.
It's
you lock down.
It's still bad.
You lock down a superstar.
It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad.
It's not great.
Luka
when you lock up
matters.
Yeah, you lock up so much.
Luka can be the percentage of the cap, and I'm not.
But like,
there's crazy.
Like,
you could feel that way.
Like, what if Luka gets an injury? What if Luka? Like, there's so many ifs. That $60 million, it's guaranteed money. The NBA is guaranteed money. So you got $60 million. Your team's what's the cap space? Like 170, 180.
That will be 35%.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, so much money locked up there, and they got Kyrie too. Let's say Kyrie sticks around for another couple. How much? What Kyrie signed for 3 or 4?
With CBA, to be eligible for said like Supermax deal, you got to make one All NBA team. So right now on the new CBA, you probably got 4 years to make one All NBA team to be eligible for that. If you're a top 40 player, you have just as good a chance to make an All NBA team as everybody else. Especially now with the big stars, the older stars, they probably not going to play that many games because they don't care about making All NBA teams. AD don't care about making an All NBA team. He's already a top 15 player all the time. He's really trying to be ready for the postseason. So that leaves for niggas like, excuse my language, but Mikal Bridges to make an All NBA team, and he will be eligible for said Supermax. And he will be eligible to take up 35% of somebody's cap. No matter who it is, it's going to be bad because there's going to be 2 players probably on the top 10 teams that's making said money. giving
see
70%
Kawhi.
to two players.
Like
It's gonna
Kawhi sits out. Kawhi sits out. Like it's not great, but Kawhi sits out, right? Kawhi, if he plays all year, he probably gets an All NBA slot, right? Like he probably gets an All NBA slot. But there's going to be, I agree, that Mikal Bridges. There's going to be Edwards I think deserves it, but the Jaylen Browns, the Bradley Beals, the Bams, like the guys who are like they're definitely fringe All NBA guys, but like easily making 1, 2, 3, 4 all NBA teams, and like they're all great basketball players, but just that idea of paying $60 million, even the top guys right now, it's deserving, but it's just so much money to think about, and when you think about the entire cap space, it's just crazy.
You think Jaylen Brown is a $60 million player?
I don't think many guys are a $60 million player.
Because if Jaylen Brown, if he makes an All-NBA team under this new CBA, he's probably going to be eligible for a Supermax. Jaylen Brown's not a $16 million player. He had a great season. He's not a $60 million player. So if he's taking up 60, like 35%, and say Julius Randle go out and hits All-NBA again, which he just did, he's probably eligible for another one, for an extension. If Jaylen Brown and Julius Randle locked up for
Are we giving Jalen Brunson $60 million a year if he makes 2 more All-NBA teams?
I think at some point it's gonna get to a point where they're gonna stop offering it. Like you're not offering Julius Randle a Supermax. I think at a point,
you gotta risk them.
I'd rather him leave. I would rather Julius Randle leave.
That's the only option you got. You go if you're the Knicks, who have not been able to get a superstar since Carmelo, right? Like somehow they cannot pull a superstar. So you're looking at your team, and are we going to pay Jalen Brunson the Supermax, or are we going to go back to being a lottery feeder, playing barely team? You know what I mean? Like teams are forced to do it, especially in New York, in Miami, in LA, and like in these big markets where you have to win, otherwise your fans give up on you. Like New York
fans aren't giving up on New York.
That's what I'm saying. New York has hope now. I think New York has hope now.
No, I'm saying when the Knicks were terrible, they still had a lot of fans. When Dolan was there, like a lot of stuff was going on.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's just because they go to games doesn't mean they support your team at the same time. I get they're paying for tickets, but you got people booing. Like, how do you think that feels as a player? You know what I mean? Like if you got your own fans booing in the stands, wearing the paper bags over their heads, right? Like you don't want to play for that. No one wants to play for that. So like, I mean, as much as you're selling tickets, you're doing great, whatever. You want to win. Your fans want to win, especially in places where winning is expected, like LA. When this LeBron AD era is over, I don't think they can go back to just being mediocre and being bad. Like, are we going to look at them getting some guy and being forced to sign a Supermax just to stay relevant? Like, I don't know.
It just depends on the player. Jalen Brunson, I'll think about it. Julius Randle, I'd rather him walk out my franchise and pay him $60 million. I don't care what he makes.
I'm not thinking about giving Jalen Brunson $60 million. I'm not giving Jalen Brunson $60 million.
Yeah, I might let him walk too, honestly.
You can call me a hater, whatever you want. Jalen Brunson's not a $60 million player.
Yeah, so it depends. It depends on what the owners do, because I feel like if I'm an owner, I'm letting some of these people walk. Like not Jaylen Brown.
And the GM's playing hardball. It's really up to them.
Because some of these players not gonna have that crazy of a market. Like I don't think anybody else is gonna pay Jaylen Brunson $60 million or anything close to that. I don't think. Well, some team would have paid Jaylen Brown. Yeah, some team would have paid Jaylen Brown. Not that crazy, bro, but like some team would have paid him about like $50 million, probably $40 million.
45.
Boston's the only team that could have gave him $304. Yeah,
but I think they could have given him like $250.
Huh?
Someone could have given him like $250 probably.
It probably would have been like $250, $260 somewhere else.
Yeah,
but it would have still been 35% of their cap. Regardless, it's 35%. It just would have been a less number, but it would have still been at 35%. Because if it's your team with the bird rights, they could go like 120% over. So they paying a 20% extra tax just to give them that extra bit of money.